it's hard to admit to yourself the things that are holding you back.
I was feeling confused why I didn't want to, fight for a job, to, fight for a role in a movie, or why I wasn't passionate. And I realized that I needed to change and rediscover my passion.
What is the single most important ingredient for an extraordinary life? I mean life on your terms, a life of fulfillment, a life of meaning. I believe the answer is hunger. You ask me all the time, you work with some of the most successful people in the world in sports, entertainment, and business. What is it they all have in common? What is that magical force? It's insatiable hunger, that desire to do more, to be more, to give more, to create more. Someone who will not settle for less than they can be, less than they can give. That is power that you feel an energy from. That energy is this drive, and this drive is hunger. Now, what does it sometimes is you have a threshold. I know that's what it is for me. Found myself in a 400 square foot bachelor. A friend knocks on the door, I've not seen in years. I got a nice big beer belly, 38 pounds heavier than I am now, scraggly beard, embarrassed out of my mind, not able to pay my rent. Finally, something I hit this edge where it's like, I know who I am as a man, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, psychologically. It's so much more than I'm demonstrating. Something clicked. And I just never let that hunger disappear again. It's not just hunger to lose weight so you can make it to, into a bathing suit for the summer or something. It's hunger for something greater than yourself. If you got a hunger to serve something greater than yourself, you'll never hurt for energy. You'll never hurt for excitement. You'll never hurt for the drive or the ability to push yourself through limitations. Because we'll all do more for others we love than we'll ever do for ourselves. I'm sure if you have children, you know this to be true. You do more for them than you do for yourself. That's the beauty of being human. Let this holiday and the beginning of a new year become a new year, new life. A new level of mission, a new level of drive, a new level of hunger. And I hope for you only the greatest gift. The gift of challenge, the gift of growth, and the gift of unlimited, insatiable hunger.
All right. Well, I had to show that for a couple of reasons. One, because who doesn't love Tony Robbins, right? And I also know that Brian Pitcher is a big Tony Robbins fan. So that was for you, Brian, to get you pumped up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Up, right? You gotta love little Tony Robbins. So anyway, welcome, man. How are you doing today?
Doing really good, man.
Well, cool. I'll give you a brief little introduction. And today is June 24th. I was thinking earlier when I started doing these calls, for people to go back and look, if it wasn't date stamped, it would be very helpful to know what date it was, because the calls from 3 months ago, are so much different maybe than today, right? Just because of all that's gone on, like 3 months, so much has happened in 3 months. It's been crazy with COVID, but today's June 24th, right. Wednesday. We got Brian Pitcher here joining us today. I've been fortunate enough to get to know Brian, a lot better than I did before here these last 2 or 3 years. And I've really appreciated talking with him off and on. We've done some business and other things, but he's an awesome guy. We're going to talk more about his story, personally, as well as investing as he's come along throughout the years. So a little bit more about Brian. Brian grew up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, where after high school graduation in 1996, he went to North Idaho College for a year and a half. He then decided to serve an LDS mission, and he went to serve the people of Santa Maria, Brazil for the next 2 years. Following his mission, Brian attended BYU Idaho for a year, BYU Hawaii for a year, and then finished up at the right place, the University of Utah, with a degree in Spanish in 2005. It was while attending the U of U that Brian acquired his real estate license. So in the crash of 2008, Brian owned 7 doors. During this time, he sold off 4 of them, short sold 2, and kept the one he was living in. Those were rough years, but he did make it through without filing for bankruptcy. Ironically, it was during those years Brian learned how to negotiate short sales and ended up negotiating several hundred with the banks. Many of those were his own listings, and some were for other agents. Brian ended up carrying an average of inventory of 50 to 60 listings at any given moment during the crash. It was also at this time that Brian started flipping properties himself. In 2013, Brian saw that short sales were going away as the market improved. It was also at this time that he found out he had a brain tumor. And I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Brian. It is a condition called, say it?
Acromegaly.
Acromegaly. Okay. Similar to what Tony Robbins has. He had 2 surgeries that summer to remove the brain tumor. As a result of this experience, he looks at life in a completely different light. The time is now to do what you want, not later. Although he was a top producing agent in Utah, he decided to phase out and find something where he didn't have to work nights and weekends. In January of 2017, he turned his license to focus on the investor side of business. He turned in his license, in 2017, turned in his license to focus on the investor side of business. Brian averaged 30 to 40 flips a year for many years. Recently, Brian could see a storm forming on the horizon and decided to get his real estate license back and start a team while continuing to flip and wholesale properties. He currently has 12 rental doors in Utah with several more in progress being added and 27 doors in Pocatello, Idaho. Brian is passionate about snowboarding, wakeboarding, and being with his friends and family doing fun activities. Brian is married and has 2 girls, ages 10 and 12, and lives in Draper. He loves personal development and is always striving to be better and get better. And kind of like our opening video, do more, but when you're doing more for someone else, that hunger and, will stay with you for a long time when your purpose is greater than just yourself. So anyway, Brian, what else can you add there, man? That was a lot there, and we'll get into it kind of in chronological order, but just as far as your bio, your background, did I miss anything?
No. That's my elevator pitch, right? Or
Yep.
My elevator history. Like, obviously there's a lot of ups and downs all the way in through there, but I've learned a lot. And when you fail, you learn,
Yeah.
I keep going forward and learning a lot and just continuing to try and copy other people.
I love it.
Copy other people's success. And that's been a key factor, is looking at what other people are doing and trying to figure out how they're doing it. A lot of times I'll just ask them and they'll tell me what they're doing, and I go and do it. And then they welcome me to their club.
That is so key. And again, the purpose of these calls, from my perspective anyway, is to just interview cool people like you that have failed, right? But also have had awesome success and are innovating, have new ideas, and most importantly, have a very optimistic and abundance mindset with the willingness to keep improving and getting better. And then hopefully everybody on the call can take, again, if everyone could take one thing that they learned from this call and put it into action, then, that will be a success for me. Even if it's just an idea that's planted or something they learned while they're thinking about the things you're talking about, that'll be key. So let's start at the beginning, because I always like to hear where people's real estate stories started. What got you into real estate, right? So it sounded like after, visiting every college other than actual BYU, is there even another BYU on there that you could have gone to? Maybe Southern Virginia?
Southern Virginia, BYU Provo. Yeah, it was just, not for me.
Awesome. So you're at the U, right? And then you decided to get your license?
Right. Actually, while I was going to the U, I was a personal trainer. And during college, I flipped cars so that I didn't have to have a regular job, and did pretty well doing that. Did a summer knocking doors, selling home security systems. Hated that, but I learned a lot. Spent all the money while I was there because it was fun to live in Southern California.
Yeah.
I went to the beach all the time. And then, one of my roommates while I was in college said, "Hey, we should go get our real estate licenses." And I'm like, "Oh, that sounds great. What do we do?" And the next week we signed up for real estate school.
Awesome.
So, I have no idea what I was in for when I did it. I had no idea. I just knew that some family members, some cousins, uncles, grandpa were in real estate. And I'd read that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and knew that I wanted to get into real estate. And I figured, I thought that the best way to get into real estate investing was being a real estate agent. And so got my real estate license, actually when I got my real estate license, it was January of 2004. And I was personal training, and I thought that I could sell houses to my clients within a week, I learned that that wasn't going to work. And I was actually not doing good at either job because I really didn't want to be a personal trainer. I wanted to be an agent, but it wasn't working because I wasn't putting enough time in either. And so I had to make a decision. And so I decided to push after what I really wanted, and I quit my personal training job. Awesome. I had 2.5 months worth of credit to live on. With enough
credit.
money.
We're not talking cash. We're talking credit.
We're not talking credit.
Got it.
And, enough money in the bank to make the minimum payments on the credit cards. So it was like really nerve-wracking. And the worst thing in the world for me was to go and ask my dad for money.
And how old were you again?
Let's see. So it was 2004. So I think I was 26.
26.
Just barely turned 26.
And so to pause you really quick, this is fascinating because, I mean, clearly many people that are in real estate have been influenced by books. And it seems like the first book everybody picks up, because you just mentioned it, you know, maybe not the first one, but Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? So if anyone is on this call that has yet to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I would suggest you go get it and read it, right? And so the other thing I really like about you, Brian, and it shows throughout your whole career, is it started with what you were selling before real estate, is you're just not afraid to go network, put yourself out there, sell something, tell your story, go talk to people, smile, shake their hand, right? Which is going to come into play with, you know, it's a perfect fit for real estate. So,
right.
Okay. So you're, you know, you're loaded at this point, right? Like, no, I'm just kidding. You've got a short fuse. You dropped the personal training, you had your license, and you're like, I'm making it a go with real estate.
Right. And so I ended up finding, within 30 days, I found 3 clients that wanted to buy a home. Luckily, at that point in time, you didn't really have to truly qualify. You just had to have someone raise their hand.
Yeah, right. Because it's, again, 2005, 2006, right?
This was 2004.
Oh, 2004. Okay, but loan programs were already crazy back then, right?
Yeah,
Anyone
they were
could
crazy.
get anything they wanted.
Yeah, and so I was able to, one of those people actually couldn't qualify because they were still in bankruptcy. The other 2 people bought houses even on a 50-50 split with the brokerage I was at. I was able to make $5,000 within 60 days of quitting my license. And that changed my life. I was able to pay off some credit cards, like take care of some things, put some money in the bank, and thought, okay, I am off to the races. First year as an agent, made $45,000 for not calendar year, but 2004. And then 2005, I made $145,000.
Awesome.
While I was still in college.
While I was still in college, just commission-based stuff.
Commission-based stuff, working part-time, playing a lot. Honestly, my playing is because I bought a boat and I was taking everybody out in the boat and they wanted to know what I was doing. And so I'd go sell them some houses and then they could do what I did.
Awesome.
Pretty awesome.
Again, networking and not so much telling people what you do, but kind of lifestyle, right? And then people would ask.
Right. And then people would ask. And then, and then I thought, okay, and I also, my very first house I bought with the intent, like luckily I could do stated income at the time. I knew that I didn't want to make a full mortgage payment. But my first home was in Taylorsville on 2200 West by the community college. I bought it and rented out the rooms to make the mortgage payment. So I knew that I was buying my first house with the intent to rent my rooms out.
Got it.
And I lived there for free, but I bought all the toys for the property. I had a hot tub that didn't work that I did get working eventually. And I bought the pool table and the big screen TV, like the monster TVs that we don't see anymore.
Yeah.
This is target practice now. So I bought those and rented out all the rooms and lived there for free. And then I thought, okay, cool. This is awesome. And then I bought my second property the same way. I went and bought a home in West Jordan. I paid $240,000 for it, which $250,000. My goodness.
Yeah.
A 4,000 square foot home with a 3-car garage.
Yeah.
And a mother-in-law apartment.
We'd all take that right now, right? So
I'll take it.
We were both at a Utah RIA event last night, and I didn't catch her name, but there was a lady in the front, and she maybe sounded a little frustrated that, you know, maybe she wasn't having a lot of real estate success yet. And a lot of the things that we're going to talk about, like flipping, wholesaling, rentals, you know, seemed kind of maybe above her head. Right. But then she told a story, and it kind of echoes what you just said. And also John Maxim in one of his interviews with me, he talked about how he basically house hacked and lived for free by, renting it out to friends and family or whatever. But, she talked about how she was renting and the landlord was selling. And so she's like, well, I'll buy it. So she bought it from her landlord and then, then started renting out the back part of her house to help cover her mortgage. So just, tip, I know a lot of people on here have done a lot of real estate already, but if you haven't, your first deal is the house you're living in, right? House hack, and then do what you just did. Then you keep that one as a rental, you move to the next one, right? So, all right, cool. So now you've got kind of a little bit of a bug for not just doing agent work, but investing, right? And so you ramped it up a little bit, right? Because in the next couple of years, you got a bunch of rentals. And let's build up to that point, because I want to talk about kind of your mental toughness as far as what happened, when things maybe started to not go as planned.
Right. I bought a triplex by the U. I bought another house in Draper as part of an investment, into another deal. Learned a lot on that one, and started getting these rental properties. I was self-managing all of them. I didn't hire a property manager. I self-managed all of them. Wasn't really focused on, I wanted the cash flow, but the cash flow wasn't much because it was 100% financing on all of it. There's no down payment. We're fixing properties up. And, life was good. I really didn't have any living expenses because I lived in the home for free. And then in 2006, I decided to get married and I moved out and got my own house. Thought I might rent the basement out and then realized that my wife was not into that. And so all of a sudden I had a $1,600 mortgage payment to cover myself. And I'm like, whoa, that was a big shock. Went from nothing to $1,600. But I thought, I could do it. And then started selling real estate 2006. And then things started to change in 2007. I remember in February of 2007, when we were at one of my buddies who was at the closing table, they came out and told him, the bank just went bankrupt. What? The bank ain't gonna fund this thing. We need an extension so we can go get it funded by somebody else. They funded it, but that's the first time I heard. That's the first time I thought, that's not normal. What's going on here?
Yeah. A little disruption to the regular flow. And then that fall, August of 2007 is when the rates went up into the 7s instead of the 6s. And that's when everything, like the music stopped. We were playing musical chairs and the music stopped August of 2007. And at that point in time, I'd been doing some lease options with some friends of mine to help them buy a home and lease option it, found the tenant. Like I was doing some creative stuff then. But from at that point in time, it was a downhill slope for everything. I actually decided to move from the mom and pop brokerage I was at that point in time. Actually, it was actually one of my buddies, but there was no training. It was Utah Select Realty, Bryce Jones at the time. He was my roommate in college. We were actually going to build that brokerage together, and then he decided he wanted to do it on his own. He was married. I was still having a great time in college. So, you know what, whatever, you do it on your own, whatever. I moved to Keller Williams to learn how to become an agent. And went from 100% split to a 60-40 split or whatever that split was, and learned how to be an agent. It was a big jump for me to try and figure something out. And then I learned how to become an agent, and I started to learn how to market and learn how to go after sphere of influence. And I wanted to go after notice of defaults because I saw that being a play. And then in 2008, 2009, things were getting rough. I started to go after short sales. Some of my clients needed a short. I heard that was some people needed to do that. I'd done a short sell in 2006. Yeah.
And thought, you know what, actually I know how to do that. So I went and did it. And I started talking to agent friends, and they're like, dude, why would you go after short sales? There's so much regular business out there. And I thought, my clients need it. I know how to do it. And if you don't want to do it, refer it to me and I'll give you a referral fee. And so I started teaching people how to do short sales. And once they realized how time consuming they were like, you know what, you just do it.
Yeah.
So by teaching, people started sending me all their short sales. I became very well known in Utah for that.
Yep.
Where I grew up my inventory, in a very short period of time to 50 to 60 short sale listings. A lot of these were Bank of America files. It took a year and a half to negotiate. It was very rare for a deal to get done in 90 to 120 days. In 2006, it took an extra 3
pause
weeks.
and go back. Think about the patience you used to have, right? I remember working short sales too. And we're so quick right now, right? Like a wholesaler gets a deal and it's like, if the turnaround time is, less than 2 weeks, that seems like a really, really long time. But you remember back in the day, like you'd have to call the bank, get third-party authorization. You would fax in things to like some number. You had no idea if anyone was even reading, right? And then to do 50 or 60 short sales at a time is pretty phenomenal because the detail in each one of those, I mean, I remember just for one short sale file, it seems like your packet would be this thick, right? And all the nonsense paperwork. So give us maybe what allowed you to scale that way? Like, how did you build that team or how did you do that many? Because I think a lot of that correlates to how people are maybe running kind of their wholesale business right now, right? Like where it needs to be process oriented, delegation, that kind of thing. How did you kind of keep track of all those short sales?
So I had I actually built a website to keep, I'm back up. I hired my first assistant when I went to Keller Williams before I had any business so that I could grow it. They told me to hire an assistant. They're like, the first thing you need is hire an assistant. I said, I don't have any business. And they're like, well, that's why you need to hire an assistant. I brought one on part-time. That person became full-time, got raises, whatnot. And then as I loaded up all of these short sales, I was having a hard time dealing with agents. And because every agent wanted to call me and find out exactly where I'm at, what's going on with things.
Yeah.
I ended up having another assistant to handle the phone calls and put all the and start to process all these files and get them negotiated, track down the seller for everything we needed, and then send them to the bank. And then I ended up hiring a short sale negotiator out of Kentucky that was working for a short sale processing company. I think that name was BGS3. They went under for lack of management. And I'm like, look, why don't you come work with me? Like, I got enough files to keep you busy. And I sent everything over. What I loved about having her on board, her name was Sheila, is that she was East Coast time.
Yeah, right.
When I woke up, I already had progress updates on like half my files.
Yeah.
What was going on. And I had to put in systems in place to touch every file every Tuesday so that I knew exactly what was going on. Because sometimes if I did every other week, if a file got missed, it was 4 weeks before I touched it again. And that was too long.
Yep.
So I had to touch it every week. I built a website and made my assistant update that website every week and put that website in the agent remarks and says, if you want an update on this file, go to this website. Don't call before you go to the website.
Yeah.
Agents hated it because they all wanted to talk to me. And then I tell them, did you go to the website? No, then go to the website and then call my assistant. He knows more about it than I do.
Yeah.
I'm focused on finding new deals. We were getting those things closed. So we had over a 90% success rate on closing our short sales because of our processes we put in place. Now, what most people don't like, if you had looked at me as an agent and you saw all the listings that I had, you thought that I was absolutely crushing it. That's what it looked like. And I was doing better than most people. Don't get me wrong. I was glad to do what I was doing, but my average commission check on those short sales was $4,000.
Yeah.
And if I did 100 of those in a year, I was making $400,000 in the year, gross commission. And then I had to pay 3 assistants out of that and marketing and overhead before I would walk away with about $150,000, what was left over.
Yeah. And it was a tremendous amount of detail and work for one file, but for 100 files, I can't even imagine, I can't even imagine. So I'm going to jump to the chat because there's a question from Estevan. He says, this is smart. What in general did you delegate to your assistants? And it sounds like you pretty much tried to delegate everything, but your special skill, which was go and finding new business.
Going
right?
for new business. So when I would I started sending out letters to notice the defaults and notice the sell dates of, hey, I can get the short sale approved on this thing and put money in your pocket. That was the trigger that everybody wanted. If I could go back and do it again, I would have had more than 50 to 60 at a time. I would have had 200 or 300 at a time.
Right. And just build out your team a little bit better.
Now that I know how to market. So I would talk to the seller. I met with every seller. I'd find out what they needed to do, what they wanted, and then I would establish a plan on how I needed to get this thing done. I did a lot of new construction where the banks went belly up and the seller got stuck with a home that was under construction, with a contractor that didn't get paid, with a subcontractor that didn't get paid, and you'd have several $100,000 in mechanics liens against that property. And I would go negotiate that short sale and get that thing approved.
It's complicated work. And one maybe final note here, because I want to get to some other things, is what I noticed, and I think you're confirming this too, is when people were, in a situation where they didn't know if they were, heads up or tails up, or they didn't know where they were, right? Like it was foreign to them. Things have been going good. All of a sudden they're upside down. They're missing payments. They're panicked. They're stressed. Where I think you as a real estate professional can come in and help solve someone's problem is after you understand their problem and create that relationship and rapport with them. I found, because what you said here triggered my memory of this, is like, I would do the same thing. I would say, here is the plan. This is what we're doing. All I want you to do is get me the information I need and enjoy your life and forget about this for a little bit. Let me go work with the bank and get this done and don't worry about it anymore. Right. And like, it was so weird. Once people felt like there was a plan in place, because they clearly didn't have a plan because they were in a tailspin, right? Like, and they were in distress. But once they felt like somebody had a plan and they could trust in that plan, dude, it was amazing. The next conversation you'd have with these people, when in reality, they're actually in a worse situation because the more time that goes on, like it's not getting better. They were happier. They were like, oh, great. Yeah, I don't, there weren't as many worries so that's just a good point, is you need a plan for yourself and your own business. But then when you're working with people and you can sense that they need guidance, sometimes people just need to be told what to do. Like, This is what we're doing, as long as it's ethical and legal and moral, right? Like, this is what we need to do. This is what we're doing. Follow me and help me get us there, right? And so it sounds like, you did that pretty well with short sales. And I think this will translate too when we talk about your current marketing, what you're doing, right? Like, you're painting the picture of like, this is the plan. This is what we would do. Give me a call.
Right.
I love it. Okay. So what I want to do a little bit is I want to, there was some pain and suffering there, not only from some of the lost financial stuff or ego, or, maybe you had your own properties that didn't go well. Plus you're dealing with all these people in distress. So there's like a lot of emotional baggage in dealing with these short sales. But talk briefly about your brain tumor, because I think when I've talked to you privately, I think this was a pretty pivotal point in your life, right? And what that meant to you, and then your outlook that changed as a result of it.
Right. So I was, let's see, I was coming in 2013, still had a ton of listings. Everything was kind of on autopilot. Like, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Listings were coming in, things were being closed. And then I went to my sister's wedding, and her new brother-in-law said, hey, your brother looks like he has a condition like my best friend does. He should go get checked out. And they called it Acromegal. And I'm like, I don't know what that is, whatever. And then I went and researched that. They told my mom and my sister. They were afraid to tell me as afraid of offending me. But I was open to it. I was like, well, that would explain why I'm in pain all the time. And so after I researched into it, it was a condition called acromegaly. It's where where your body creates too much human growth hormone. And in college, it was amazing because I was ripped and I was strong.
Yeah.
But once you stop working out, it goes to your joints. It goes to your bones start growing when they're not supposed to. Like, my lower jaw kept growing to where I had a 10 millimeter or a full centimeter underbite where I used to have an overbite. Everything got thicker. My skin got oily. My hair was so thick because it just kept growing. Like, everything that human growth hormone does. I actually broke my elbow And I went in after I'd gotten it healed up, and the doctor called the other doctor over and said, come check this out. Because I had all that extra growth hormone, it healed twice as fast as normal.
Really interesting.
Right. That was January of 2013 that I broke my elbow doing CrossFit. That was fun. But so I found out what I had. I'm like, I had severe arthritis in all of my joints. Like if I went up 2 stairs and jumped off, it would shock my entire system and hurt. And I hobbled around, like I couldn't go downstairs. I couldn't go down the stairs like 1 foot in front of the other like you normally do. I had to go one at a time, like I'm carrying a heavy weight.
And was this something you were born with?
No. I didn't start. It was a gradual downhill. I thought I was paying for all my athletics in college, but it was really arthritis from this brain tumor. So I found out based on all these symptoms. I thought, it looks like I have it. I'm going to go get checked out. All it took was a blood test to check how much human growth hormone I had in my system, and it was about 20 times higher than normal.
Wow.
What bodybuilders would pay $1,000 a month for is what I had naturally. And so I thought, okay, well, let's go get this taken care of. It was a brain tumor. It's in the pituitary gland on the front of your brain. You get to it through your nose. You had to go through my nose, through the nasal cavity, break a hole in the wall, and right to the front of my brain. And that's where they removed it. The night before I went in for surgery, I actually watched it on YouTube. It was kind of crazy. I had a brain surgery in May to remove it. And then all of a sudden, right after that, I started feeling great. I was like, my joints were starting to feel better. Things were good. And then it started to hurt again in July. Come to find out, it was growing back. So they had to go back in and really scrape around through there and get all of it into this cavity. And in the process, about 6 weeks later, I was miserable. Come to find out, my pituitary gland quit functioning. And I had no hormones in my body, my thyroid, testosterone, growth hormone, none of it. Hair was falling out. I was laying under my bed at work because I'd go to work every day and make sure this happened because I have to be busy. And I would lay underneath my bed with a heater on me I was tired and was cold.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't keep my temperature regulated. And so come to find out, my body no longer produces any hormones. So I have to do hormone replacement therapy for everything.
Wow.
It sucks, but
yeah, you went from having way too much to zero.
Yeah. But you know what? After I looked at this thing, I thought, what a blessing that I found this out before it killed me.
Yeah.
Because the average person that has what I have will die of a heart attack because your internal organs keep growing when they're not supposed to. Your heart keeps growing when it's not supposed to. And that's the natural outcome of someone with acromegaly that doesn't get treated as a heart attack.
Yeah.
Because of that. And so I'm so grateful I found out before it killed me what to do. And because I had a death sentence.
Yeah.
And now I don't. Now I can live a regular life. So I was able to take care of a big problem like cancer without radiation, without chemotherapy. So I'm grateful for what I got, I can deal with. Because there are so many people that get something that with a death sentence that they can't deal with it. Like there ain't no cure. There ain't no, their cure is way worse than mine. Mine's just hormone replacement therapy. At least I didn't have to get amputated an arm or a leg or go through chemotherapy and really kill your body and have a way worse quality of life.
So what was the physically and, for your health, obviously, there were some huge benefits, like you said, to finding out about this and then getting, the new treatment that you need to get the hormones. But, you've talked about this to me. Talk a little bit about what that did to you, like your outlook on work life and what was really important to you and how you kind of then transitioned to working, knowing that, like you just said, how lucky you were because you did have a death sentence and you didn't know it. But then when you knew it, you talk about that a little bit.
Okay. So I was always taught, I just need to work my ass off for the next 5 years, and then I can do what I want. Then I can make the money that I want to make. If I just put in the time now, I'll get what I want later. That mindset's a freaking lie. It's a complete and total lie. It's a lie to make you work hard for 5 years, and because that carrot keeps on getting moved. Because what turns in from 1 to 2 years to 5 years to 10 years to 20 years, and then you die.
Yeah.
Right. So this idea of do this now, sacrifice everything now so you can have what you want later is a lie. So I realize that there are some people that may have worked out for them, but the issue is you don't know when your ticker is going to stop ticking.
Right.
You may do this for 10 years, and then on 10 and a half years down the road, you die, and you only got to experience what you thought you were going to experience for the rest of your life. Well, it was for 6 months. So I changed everything to where I wasn't willing to work all these nights and weekends anymore. Because as a short sale agent, all my appointments were in the evening.
Yeah, you had to be there when people were not at work.
Not at work, and I was working on all the short sale files during banking hours.
Yeah.
So I was working 60 to 80 hours a week, nights and weekends. I usually took Sundays off. It's easy to do in Utah to take Sundays off, but sometimes I was working Sundays too. And I was just burnt out. I was totally burnt out. And I decided that after I got done with my brain tumor and I started looking at what I just escaped, that was in January of 2014, I started looking for something different to do. I ended up, one of my friends now that I will always be grateful for is Scott Dilley. Scott Dilley, I pulled him aside and said, "What are you doing?" Because he did a ton of short sales too. He's like, "Dude, you got to start flipping more houses." And I'm like, "Well, I'm flipping quite a few." And he's like, "You need to join this mastermind group. It's 15 grand a year. You should just try it out." I'm like, "Dude, I don't have the money to do that. I just got done not working for 6 months and paying for all these medical bills."
Yeah.
And he said, "You just got to go try it out." So I ended up trying it out. I'm like, and I negotiated a payment plan to do it, joined Collective Genius, learned that all the people that really do stuff in real estate, like there's going to be some good agents, but it is way easier to be an average investor and create more money than I've ever made being an agent, being an average investor. Average investor does better than a top agent most of the time.
Okay. I like that.
It's not until you are a top agent that you are also a top investor that you do better than most investors when you have the mindset to do both. The best investors are also phenomenal agents.
Yeah.
Vice versa. If you do one or the other, then if you're going to just pick one or the other, you'll do better as an average investor than a great agent.
Than a great agent.
I
think that's true. I think
right.
That's very true.
And it's because you're not limited to just a 3% side.
Right.
Whatever money you make is what you create from negotiations or value add or whatever it is. So I started looking I talked to Scott Dilley. He said, "Do this." When I went there, I learned that to rehab homes, you can make a ton of money doing it. I know how to do it. I liked it. And so I ramped up my short sale my rehabbing business to 30 to 40 at a time. And in 2016, I thought, I went to Tony Robbins and he said, "Pick what you really want to do and go after it." And I thought, hey, agent, being a trainer, a physical trainer, or an agent, I picked the agent. Well, now I had that same one, be an agent or be an investor. And I thought, you know what, let's turn this one off. I turned in my real estate license January of 2017 and went to be a full-time investor. Best decision I made at the time.
Awesome.
Because I focused on being an investor. And when I wasn't being an investor, instead of feeling like I had to prospect or go be a good agent, I went home.
Yeah, right.
Spent a lot of time with my family. We went on a lot of amazing vacations. I was actually able to grow up with my kids. They were already 3 and 6 by the time I had my brain tumor. I don't really remember much before they were 3 and 6 years old. After they were 3 and 6, I remember a lot because I was actually there.
And then you were present when you were there. You were present when you were at work because you had more of a singular focus and just drilled down to do what you're really good at. So I wanted to hit on a couple other things. I think your story is so powerful. Some questions I had for you is because I think people will benefit from hearing how you piece this all together and had the success you were having. So give us your quick tips on along the way, ramping up from kind of like a couple flips to 50 or 60. That's a lot, right? So what did you
30
do?
to 40. I wish I had 50 to 60, but I had 30 to 40 flips a year.
30 to 40, but that's still a lot. That requires a ton of capital. What are some things you did to raise money? You maybe went to a hard money lender, right? Or you maybe went to a private lender, but then you also need rehab money, fix up. Like some people, I know a lot of people on this call always struggle to find their rehab money and their funds, right? Like what were some tips or tricks you used or are using now, or the way that you secured some of that financing?
Okay. So, in 2015, I looked at how much I paid in hard money with points and interest, and it was about 175 grand or 150 grand. And I thought if I could just get rid of the points, it would knock it down to about 75 grand. And that would be money back in my pocket. I realized that that you get paid a lot to go find private capital to do your deals.
Yeah.
But just by what you save in points. And, don't get me wrong. There's a time and a place when you need hard money. Even if you have a ton of private capital, there's a time and a place when you need the hard money and you go do it. And that's where I started working with Matt. I started, the traditional thing is that most investors do in the beginning is they go and ask people, can I borrow money from you? And when you have that mindset of, can I borrow money from you? You sound like they're kids. You sound like people that will never pay them back. So I changed my lingo and I said, instead of saying, will you borrow me money? I say, hey, do you want to invest in real estate with me? Oh, yeah, I would like to invest in real estate, but I'm not sure what to do. You're like, well, here's my track record. Let's go tour some properties that I'm actually doing right now and I'll go over the real numbers with you. And then I started finding people that had 100 grand or more and said, do you want to invest in real estate with me? And we'd go do the tour.
I love it. So you reframed the question, you had credibility, and then you took them to touch it and feel it.
Right. So they were touching it, they were feeling it, they were seeing it. And then they started saying, yeah, I would actually love to do that. And I started funding my own deals with 100% of acquisition and fix-ups by doing that. And, awesome. And I'd show them the values and everything. Over time, which can get risky, but it's also amazing, is they're like, I trust you. As long as I have a note and trust deed on the property, I'm good.
Yeah.
Whatever you want. I'll give you whatever you ask for.
And I've noticed that first one is maybe the hardest one to do, but after you get that first one under your belt, it actually, as long as they have the money, they're actually calling you saying, hey, I got money sitting here. Can you use it? I mean, I had that conversation yesterday with a family member where they're like, we have money sitting here. Can you, are you going to buy another property? And I'm like, well, let me get working on it,
I've had that call where a lender that I've been working with called me up and said, hey, I just, you know what? I haven't told anybody this yet, but I just had an annuity come due and I'm getting back about 250 grand and I want to give it to you.
Yeah.
Like people throw money at you once you can put their money to work and protect their money.
Yeah, and protect it, right? So if you guys all didn't hear Sterling Harris, he's a newer investor on the call a couple of weeks ago. It's on my YouTube channel if you want to go back and watch it. But he talked about the success he's been having by, posting on social media, but being authentic about it, right? And then kind of, you got to ask too though, right, Brian? Like you've got to at some point ask, but ask in the right way. Don't ask like, hey, give me money. Ask this is how I could provide a return for you. Let's go look at it and touch it and feel it. So, okay, cool. That's awesome. So Malou has a question. If you guys don't know Malou, get to know Malou. Malou's an awesome dude. He has his license at my brokerage, but he asked what mastermind group it was. I think it was called Collective Genius. Is that right?
Yes. There's actually quite a few mastermind groups that people can go join now that are actually just as good as Collective Genius, or with a different approach.
And Malou or everybody on here, I've heard really, really good things about 7-figure flipping. I know.
That's a good one. The Flip Nerd Mastermind. Mike Hambright's mastermind. I don't remember what it's called anymore. Investor Fuel.
Investor Fuel. So there you go. Investor Fuel, Collective Genius, 7-figure flipping, and Flip Nerd.
No, Mike Hambright does Flip Nerd, but he did Investor Fuel.
Okay, Investor Fuel. So there you go, Malou. Those are some. And, you know, Malou, you're an all-star too, man. Your story will be told one of these days as well. I need to have you on. I just was thinking about that. So, all right, Kate. So you've done this stuff.
Here, I want to finish the private.
Oh, yeah, finish the money. Yeah, please.
So, and then I started asking people that I was buying properties from, what do you plan to do with the money? You know, oh, I don't know. I just want to get rid of the house. I'm like, well, would you like to get a great return on your money backed by real estate? Well, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm going to buy your house for the price that we've agreed to. And then I have other lenders that are going to get a blank amount return that is going to be backed by this property. And then when I go and remodel it and I sell it, they're going to get their money back plus a return. And we're going to do it that way. And they're like, well, yeah, I would be interested in that. Call me when you have a property. And I'd usually have a property right around the corner. And after I bought their property, and I probably raised $1 million just by doing that one.
Really?
People I bought properties from.
That's awesome.
One of them, her property was in foreclosure, and she had a little bit of equity, but not much. She had $250,000 sitting in an IRA at 0%, doing nothing because she was afraid to invest it in the stock market because she got nailed before.
Yeah.
I showed her how to self-direct it, but I coached her, held her hand to self-direct it. She's been getting a great return on it for years now.
That's awesome. So obviously create those relationships, be genuine and authentic, educate people, provide options that maybe they didn't know about, and then execute, do what you say you're going to do, and rinse and repeat, right? It really does become automatic once you have a good experience with somebody.
Right. Yeah, and Jordy Clark, I've thought about starting one, but I just haven't yet. So yes, Jordy, that is an affirmative.
Well, maybe by the end of this call here in the next 12 minutes, we can come up with a name for your mastermind, Brian.
I mean,
24 people that will be signing on. Okay.
Yeah, so I did raised a bunch of private capital. That's been good. That would be a major. That has put gasoline on the fire that was already started and allowed me to do a lot more types of deals and branch up into bigger deals, including the apartments, which I'm now I have 27 units that I'm in process of stabilizing in Pocatello. I'll probably get another 100 there within the next year and a half.
Awesome. And so we are going to be running out of time here if we dive into all of this in great detail, but tell everybody what you did to get those and then your exit out of them, which the ones that I've been involved with you, I think there was a total of 5 buildings, not units, but 5 buildings with a total of 27 doors between those 5 units. You've successfully done the BRRRR or will complete the BRRRR on the last set of these by the end of this week. And so what opportunity was in front of you? How did you put it together? And how are you exiting them? And by exiting, I mean exiting out of your temporary financing, the hard money loan, into a longer term loan.
Okay. Well, I went to another mastermind group that was put on by Corey Peterson and learned how to do deal syndication, where you raise private capital as your down payment and fix ups. And then you go get your hard money on the acquisition. And then after you go and remodel your units, raise the rents, then you raise the value of the property and you refinance out. Well, I did a deal in Pocatello with a 16-unit apartment complex where my plan was to do just that. However, they were all rented, and it was going to take me quite a while to raise the rent. So I decided to do a version of that where I just refinanced out most of the hard money based on purchase price, not on appraised value, and I supplemented the rest of it with private capital. And with the rates as low as they are, I can do 100% financing on all of it, down payment fix-ups, and still cash flow on the property.
Awesome.
And so that's what I did. The other one, the other 9-plex, the duplex has been remodeled and rented. I'm into it, $150,000 total. Cash gross rents are $1,700, and that's a home run in my book.
And where did you find these properties?
A wholesaler brought it to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he made great money on it. And I looked at the numbers and saw what I could do with it and said, you know what? I've always wanted to get into apartments. I feel like I want to get into apartments for cash flow. Growth is great. Utah is a really tough market to get into apartments for cash flow because the cap rates are so low. And Pocatello, the cap rates are higher. And it's not really a well-known market. Like most people who are doing apartments have to go to the Midwest or the Southeast, and I don't want to go there.
Right.
That's right. It was Jeff Rappaport and Rebecca Jensen that wholesaled it to me. They called me while I was in Hawaii, said, do you want this one? I said, you know what? I'll look at it when I get home.
So he's having fun, but it still worked out for her. But you had a plan. And so you said yes to an opportunity. And something Justin Puchar said on last week's call, which you just said again, which again, it's such a true fundamental part of real estate is you're like, okay, they're making pretty good money on this, but there's still something there. Because then the question you ask yourself, what could this be, right? What could it be in terms of quality and appearance and aesthetics? But more importantly, what could it be in terms of a bottom line profit and loss after you increase rents? And then you went to Mountain America Credit Union, right?
Yep.
And got a loan or a series of loans, 3 different loans, right? And you're refinancing them. You're paying off, the hard money loan. You're probably reimbursing some of your private lender and some of the rehab money. You're putting it to bed on a 30-year fixed rate interest rate. And then the other thing, because obviously I've been talking to you a bunch over this past year about it, is you were strategic. Pocatello is not like in your backyard. You went up there and interviewed different property managers, different real estate brokers, kind of assembled your own little team. So again, kind of like your short sale mentality, you could leverage where you didn't have the resources or the access or the skill set maybe, or the time, a team to do that for you. So I like this reoccurring theme of like, once you realize you had too much on your plate with bodybuilding, drop that, do agent work, right? Once you realize the agent work or the flipping, drop the agent, do the flipping, right? You get up there and do the multi-units. What do you need to complete the puzzle? Really, all you need to do is say yes to Rebecca and Jeff, get the properties. You have a team to help you do everything else. And bam, you're going to refinance. You have 27 units up in Idaho and you're looking for another, 60 or so, right?
Right. No. So yeah, I mean, my goal is to have Pocatello is a cash flow market and Utah is a growth market. And so I've been picking up duplexes and triplexes to put on my credit here in Utah. And I cash flow very well on each one. And then I'll get a ton of growth, but I'll also, and Southern Utah is cash flow markets. They're not getting a lot of growth, but the cash flow is great.
No, that is awesome. And so I feel like I should have you on for 3 hours because I feel like I'm kind of cutting you off a little bit, but I wanted to kind of slowly end here with one thing that you're doing now. And you talked about it a little bit last night as well at the Utah RIA is you're not stopping. You're looking to build your list of properties you can buy. And one kind of unique way you're doing that is you decided to go back on TV, right?
Right.
So tell us a little bit about this. And then I want to show like 30 or 45 seconds of your commercial. And then you want to talk about like, I guess the point is all of this stuff that's happening with COVID, you didn't sit back and just be like, well, we'll just wait and see what happens, right? You're like, okay, cool. There's an opportunity here. There's maybe a new, or you can resurrect a way to market that wasn't working maybe 4 or 5 months ago, but it definitely is going to work now when everybody's at home more often than they're not, right?
Right. So yeah, do you want to play that or did you ask me the question first?
Let's play it and then you can comment on it. And I won't play the whole thing, but I'll play, 45 seconds of it.
Okay.
Jensen, sell your unwanted home in any condition during the coronavirus. And here to tell us more is real estate expert and investor Brian Pitcher. Brian, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So you're buying homes right now?
Yes, many buyers are backing out of their contracts or are afraid to buy because of the coronavirus. I, however, am still paying cash for properties.
How is it that you can pay cash for these properties?
Most of these properties I buy need massive repairs, or I'm buying them to rent, and therefore I can still pay cash.
Okay, and what if the seller needs cash like right now?
The market is really volatile. If a seller needs to sell, act now, and I can close quickly.
Are they going to be paying any commissions or closing costs or any other repairs?
No, because I'm the buyer, there's no costs, and I also buy the properties as is.
All right, and how can a seller contact you to buy their home for cash?
Simple, call our office and we'll give you a free, no obligation cash offer.
Call Brian right now at 801-855.
Dude, that is awesome. So how has that gone? Talk a little bit about that.
You know, so I've been doing postcards for years, and I have to have an assistant to handle the volume of calls that I get. Many of those are people that take me off your list. I hate you, F you, like I'm gonna hunt your ass down. Those kind of calls.
Yeah.
And if I get, you know, if I send out 25,000 postcards, I'll get maybe 60 calls, and 40 of those are those, and 20 of those are actually interested, and I might buy one or two. Maybe I won't get any that month. That takes a lot of work from, that's $10 an hour work, or $20, actually more like $20, $25 an hour work to sort through that to where I can get one or two. Or I can do TV, TV and radio are those kind of marketing pieces where only the people that want to talk to you actually call you, and I don't have to have an assistant to help me do it.
Right.
And so that's why I did it. It was also, I knew everybody was home. I knew everybody was, you know, I played my commercial came on immediately after the Saturday conference, general conference in April.
Interesting.
And I paid a lot of money to have it there, and it worked like a charm. So I'm getting deals from it. It's not the end all be all. Over time, it creates celebrity. I get recognized in restaurants, and you know, all my kids' friends call my kids and say, I just saw your dad on TV. So cool.
That's awesome.
It's kind of fun. It's just a fun thing.
But it's been working. And I guess the point again is to highlight it is you saw an opportunity, you took action, you know, you had a plan, you put it in place, and it's working. The other thing that's cool is if you were to close your eyes and imagine that in a flyer or a postcard, your dialogue right there translates from a TV spot to a postcard to a ringless voice, you know, to whatever kind of thing. You just kind of created it once, and you could repackage that all day long,
right,
into other marketing, right? And so
right.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So how many deals, Andy wants to ask really quick, how many deals have you gotten from the commercial, and what's your return on investment on that?
You know, I'm getting about a deal a month, and it's about a 5-to-1 return.
Awesome.
So
that's motivating you to spend more dollars, right?
Yeah, no, it's, but you have to test, like everything you have to test, like just because you can spend $1 and make 5 or spend $1 and make 4, doesn't mean that if you spend another $1, you'll also get the same, because you have a diminishing return. It's not the same rate of return, but it is still more profitable. So at the end of the day, you have to measure that and calculate what's going to work best for what you're doing. And is it sustainable? Meaning just people are staying home during Corona, but are they going to stay at home? Well, right now they're not.
Right.
So, you know,
but then you can pivot that message because you know what kind of response you're going to get, and then you just adapt it to whatever method's going to work. So, all right, we got a couple minutes here left is all, because I like to end these right at 1 to respect everyone's time. I appreciate everyone joining. Are you okay if I drop your phone number in here?
Sure.
Okay, this is on the spot. You got a minute to respond here. What would you focus? And I know this may be different for everybody, and maybe if it's not, what would you focus on? But if it's what would you focus on, or what's the new skill you would try to develop in the next year to possibly take advantage of whatever may or may not be coming in this next year? So, I mean, it's totally hypothetical, right? But you're a man of action. You're always implementing new stuff. What's one new skill, either you yourself or you'd recommend to somebody that's kind of just like trying to figure out what direction to go like you were? Do they drop the bodybuilding or become an agent? Do they, drop the agent and become a flipper? What's maybe one skill or one avenue you'd like to see yourself or other people focus on, in this next year?
What I would say is that most people are focused on the lifestyle and trying to create, just have a ton of cash in the bank. Nothing wrong with that. I wished I would have kept more of these properties that I flipped instead of wasting the money doing something that I don't even remember I spent the money on. I wish I would have kept more of these rental properties as I went along. I'd be far wealthier and have far more cash flow today if I would have done that. Not to say that I should have kept all of them, because, you know, lifestyle is great and you want to live your life today, not tomorrow. The one thing that I wish that I'm planning on learning more of is the redevelopment, commercial development, figuring out what the cities are wanting done, especially with the changing in the commercial market we see coming, and also continuing to knock down properties where you need to put in either apartments or townhomes or things like that. That is not going to go away anytime soon for the next 20 to 30 years.
I agree. Well, when we follow up here in 6 months to a year, I guarantee you Brian will have taken a course or a seminar or learned from an expert that's done this stuff, so he doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. So, Brian, I've really enjoyed this. I'm going to cut you off here because we're up against it. I've dropped Brian's phone number. If anyone wants to reach out to him offline and or rewatch this, I'll have it posted here in the next day or two. And so you're the man. I really, really appreciate it. And we'll catch up with you offline. And thanks so much for your time.
Okay. Sounds good, Matt. Thanks, guys. Thanks for showing up.
Thank you.
Appreciate the support.
Bye.